The Codex for the Sisters of Battle is up for pre-order today and will be released to the public on the 22nd of June, except for those people who have made a deal with the Games Workshop. I am not one of those people, but I'm going to look over their shoulder and take some notes. This video will be quite light on the editing and a bit more of an audio experience. That's so I have more time to make more videos about all of the stuff for Battle Sisters and Genestealer Cult. Sorry about that, but I hope you can understand why. Right, Battle Sisters. The army rule in the Codex is the same as the Index. It's still Miracle Dice, and it remains that for charges and Battle Shock tests, only a single dice can be used to alter one of those 2d6. We've already talked a lot about the detachments of the Sisters of Battle that are coming in the Codex, but I haven't talked a lot about the Hallowed Martyrs. This has had a bit of a rework since the Index, and brings back something I know at least one of you absolutely loves. Self-immolation. We can blow up any of the tanks of the Sisters of Battle deliberately when reduced to 0 wounds. So you don't roll for deadly demise, you just make it pop. This is for any Sisters vehicle, so I expect it also works on Penitent engines. But I know that you are planning on using it exclusively on the Immolator. Suddenly Hallowed Martyrs doesn't seem the worst detachment. I mean, it may be, but it's relative to the others, which are very strong. And if you were mad, you could deliberately blow up your tank near your own troops so that they can get +1 to hit for the rest of the game because of the detachment rule. 4 of the other stratagems are the same as in the Index. Divine Intervention to bring back a character, Suffering and Sacrifice to make enemies target your small and less valuable units. You can't use it on vehicles to make the enemy just do nothing with their attacks. They will be killing something, but something less important to your army. We still have the Spirit of the Martyr to fight on death, which is very valuable for Repentia, and Rejoice the Fallen is still here but renamed to Praise the Fallen. I have found that even the biggest enemy horde, and we're seeing a lot of them now, can be destroyed if you overwatch them in their movement phase, praise the fallen in your shooting phase, presuming that they shoot at you in some way, and then you finish them off in your own shooting phase. That can get rid of a large block of enemies. Despite other tactics being available, this was my favourite stratagem in this detachment, as I am a Holy Trinity kind of sister. Holy Rage as a stratagem is out, so you no longer get +1 to wound in combat in this detachment. Instead, for 1 command point, you have Righteous Vengeance. This lets you re-roll all hits. And if your unit is under half strength, remember that this is the theme of the detachment, you get full re-rolls to wound as well. Unless some unit rules have changed, that's not great on Repentia, who already have that put only when they charge, but it'll work for future turns. And Archoflagellants have twin linked anyway, as far as we know that's still there. But Light of the Emperor has been moved over into the Army of Faith. The detachment rule is the same, but there is a change to the Hospitaller that is really cool yet has anti-synergy in this detachment. The Hospitaller can once again bring back Battle Sisters. So she's no longer healing stray characters that pass by, she returns 1 model to her unit, and if you discard a Miracle Dice of any value, then you get D3+1 Sisters back. I think this is very cool, just not for this detachment that wants you to keep going with depleted units. Of the 4 enhancements, 2 of them are unchanged in all regards. Saintly Example for more Miracle Dice on death, and Mantle of Ophelia, which changes damage against the bearer to 1. It's this enhancement and things like that that make me think of the Valorous Heart suiting this detachment well. Reduction in damage isn't quite an Our Martyred Lady trait. The Blade of St. Eleanor has been moved to the Army of Faith, and Eleanor's blade has received a rework that I'm happy with, but I know other people are a little annoyed at. Strength up and precision over strength, attacks and damage. But if you're sad to lose it as a Hallowed Martyrs fan, you haven't. To give you back the exact same ability through Suffering and Strength gives you it as it appeared in the Index. Bonuses and more bonuses if you're injured. Similarly, Litanies of Faith is called Chaplet of Sacrifice now, so all the Hallowed Martyrs enhancements are here, just under different names. Competitively, we have done well with this detachment, and when it fell short, we have the powerful army rule to rely on, and this detachment gives you many ways to make more Miracle Dice. Of course, the Army of Faith does it better. You can perform more acts of faith, and so you need more miracle dice. The enhancements and stratagems have you covered on that. Litanies of Faith is over here in name, along with Eleanor's Blade. Litanies of Faith gives you extra miracle dice for the Canoness, either kind, as we have a flying Canoness now, or the Palatine, as long as you pass a leadership test in the command phase. And we know what the Blade does. It gives extra miracle dice and lets you stab characters better. With Divine Aspect, you can exploit low leadership enemies, pick an enemy within 12 inches, and if it fails a leadership test, then you gain a miracle dice. This enhancement should be cheaper than the Litanies of Faith because Sisters are very average in their leadership, and most armies have 6+ leadership once you factor in all the Space Marines. The last enhancement is a nice little thing to let you use up those bad miracle dice. You can pass saves on this character with any miracle dice. So using a 1, that passes an armor save or invulnerable save. And you can do 2 acts of faith because of the detachment rule. But I promise you that this triptych of the Macarian Crusade is going to be just that model, not for any model in the character unit. Still, that is a very survivable character when precision attacks come a-striking. The stratagems are also themed around gaining miracle dice, and although the banner for the detachment makes it look like this is a jump pack detachment, only one stratagem is locked to these flying ladies, but they will benefit the most. Divine Guidance gives you extra armor penetration when shooting or fighting, good for bolters, great for arco-flagellants, and if you kill any models, you gain a miracle dice. Faith and Fury gives your unit Lance, which is a special rule that gives you +1 to wound when you charge, so that's kind of where Holy Rage came in. And if you kill an enemy model, you gain a miracle dice. We're gaining miracle dice. For those jump pack units, Angelic Descent is back, but not quite how you think. It lets you go back into reserves at the end of the enemy turn, as long as you are not in engagement range, and then you return in your next movement phase via Deep Strike. I'm sure that this should be called Angelic Ascent, since you get off the battlefield and leave, but that is already the name of a unit ability of the Seraphim. The stratagem gives more speed to an already speedy unit, and can be used on any unit with jump packs, including Celestine. This is the only stratagem that is limited to jump pack units. But we already heard from when Stu and Josh were talking that there will be aura effects coming from these flying sisters. The other stratagems have a little bonus, but I also think it is a bonus that has anti-synergy. Light of the Emperor, Shield of Faith, and Blinding Radiance can be used on any unit, but if you use them on a jump pack unit like Zephyrim, other Sisters units within 3 inches also get the effect of the stratagem. I mentioned in my previous video on what we know already that we don't want jump pack units in among our infantry. They should be among the enemy. If you co-charge Zephyrim and Repentia together, that can be useful, but my Seraphim and their short-range weapons want to be in the enemy backline, not walking with their foot-slogging fellow sisters. Zephyrim alone have improved. Their ability is no longer granting +1 strength. Much like Chaos Space Marine prayers, they get lethal hits or sustained hits, but there is no Chaos God to smite them. It just happens. And if you throw away a miracle dice, you get both parts. Really nice. The best person they can support there is not some other Sisters unit, but Celestine, who will also get this ability when she's in the unit, because unit abilities also apply to any characters that have joined that unit. When jump pack units are giving auras to support, these support stratagems are defensive, mostly. Light of the Emperor was a stratagem rarely used to ignore modifiers. It only became more valuable once we learned through rules commentaries that it also ignored modifiers to weapons as well. So -1 damage abilities, they could be ignored with Light of the Emperor. In the index it had less effect, as we already had a detachment rule so that any loss or damage to the unit or vehicle was giving us +1 to hit anyway, countering the most common modifier. This is the only aura that is offensive, sort of. Shield of Faith gives Feel No Pain against mortal wounds, so that's only useful if you know that mortal wounds are coming and in large numbers. It isn't worth the command points, and having it affect some other friendly units doesn't make it better. But Blinding Radiance for -1 to hit, including giving friendly sisters within 3 inches also that -1 for enemies to hit them, well, that alone is good. No unit wants -1 to hit. The 2+ going to 3+ is doubling the amount of misses, and at the other end, 5+ to hit is considered a very bad hit characteristic. I don't see what we really have to gain from these as an aura, unless that friendly unit was also going to be targeted this phase. So the Zephyrim supporting Repentia or Arcoflagellants to make them even more survivable in combat is good, but otherwise the stratagem itself, just used on an Arcoflagellant unit, is enough. The detachment isn't as amazing because of the short-ranged auras, but even if you think a lot of these stratagems are bad, the detachment rules and the massive support it gives to the army rule are great. If you thought Hallowed Martyrs was a weak detachment, we were still performing very well competitively because of the army rule. We want more miracle dice because the Sisters of Battle, our battle line unit, is getting a rules change. Defenders of the Faith will no longer provide miracle dice. This really sucks. Now it is a generic, sticky objectives. So there's less incentive to take this battle line unit, our only battle line unit, except we need them for the Pariah mission pack for the whole of the next year. Even if you're not playing with the Pariah Nexus cards and you're still using Leviathan, or you're playing Crusade games and other battles, you'll still want your sisters because the battle sisters let you double up on characters for powerful combos like the Palatine for lethal hits, joined by a Dialogus for a miracle dice becoming a 6. Auto hitting, which then because of lethal hits becomes auto wounding with a melter gun, and because of this detachment rule, you can use another miracle dice for the damage. This dice is also a 6, as the Dialogus can change one dice per act of faith, and I believe that changing the damage roll is a separate act of faith. It'll depend on the wording in the FAQ of the army rule and the Dialogus, but melters are good. This detachment goes some way to compensate the lost miracle dice from Defenders of the Faith and gives you more miracle dice to get the melters melting. That alone makes this detachment valuable. Or we could have more than just melters and use the Bringers of the Flame for the whole trinity. I have to say it looks fun, but also I don't like the melted barrel dripping. If you have a melter gun that's drippy after use, get it checked out. We know the detachment rule, and it is good. It supports the main traditional playstyle of the Sisters, close range shooting. It suits the Ebon Chalice, the OG order in the lore, and we have transport stratagems for the Argent Shroud players out there. Carry Forth the Faithful is a stratagem that lets you reroll advance rolls for a transport, and you can disembark even if that transport advanced. This isn't going to let you charge after disembarking, but it will get your guns into that 12-inch range if you're otherwise a few inches short. And that tank can still shoot because of the detachment rule. So immolators can still be supporting your shots. This is a transport detachment. It doesn't have to be, but it works very well with transports. Although I said that the Hallowed Martyrs may be the best place for our Valorous Heart, you could use this detachment instead to represent them, as Shield of Aversion is a stratagem that gives us the Armor of Contempt. Ignore 1 point of enemy armor penetration. As the Sisters' defense per model is reliant on the save when we have such low toughness, this helps us a lot. Cleansing Flames is a stratagem that gives devastating wound in the shooting phase. This is especially good on flamers because they auto hit. And the Palatine giving lethal hits is a bit of anti-synergy, but I can't recommend the Canoness anymore as she has lost the support rule to give full rerolls to hit. Instead, the Canoness on foot gets half the Space Marine Captain rule of giving you a free battle tactic each battle round, while the Jump Canoness gets the other half, the attack bonus and devastating wounds once per game. We still don't know if the Canoness on foot has all the weird weapon choice limits. The Righteous Rage enhancement is an enhancement that will support the Flying Canoness in her once per game super attack, as you can discard up to 3 miracle dice and you get extra attacks and extra strength. This can be done multiple times in the game, but that devastating wound bonus is just the once. I know you might have bad miracle dice, so that is one way to get rid of them. Another way that isn't just let's get even more and hope to roll them well, if you do have really bad luck, use the Manual of Saint Griselda to combine 2 miracle dice into the sum of those 2 miracle dice. So change a 2 and a 4 into a blessed 6. That's good on a backline character like a Hospitaller or an Imagifier. Do you want more defense? The Iron Surplice enhancement gives a Canoness or Palatine a 2+ save and a 5+ feel no pain on that model. The Canoness on foot doesn't need it so much as she has a 2+ invulnerable save once per game. As far as I know, that's still there. If you want better guns, and remember that this detachment is all about the guns, Fire and Fury is a wonderful enhancement that gives your flamers an extra shot. So Retributors with heavy flamers and a Dialogus jumping out of an Immolator is good. Or Dominions scouting with a Palatine works with it. And don't neglect the other weapons on your Dominions. The Bolters in the squad get sustained hits. This is a nice enhancement. I still don't know all the stratagems for this detachment, but it looks good as a shooting detachment. You know that if you want a combat detachment, go for the Penitent Host. This is far less general, and to work well, requires you to take a lot of the Penitent units. The Army of Faith can operate well without any jump pack units. I can't see this detachment having the same chance. The enhancements can only work with Penitent unit support, or they are there to support the Penitent units. The Psalm of Righteous Judgment is for a backline character. If they are on the battlefield when a Penitent unit destroys an enemy unit, you can change one of your stored miracle dice to a 6. Similar to the Dialogus, but when you're playing with Penitent units, few characters can join any of the Penitent units. The Minister and Priest can join Archoflagellants, and there is the Verse of Holy Piety that lets you use a Vow of Atonement for a second time, even if it's already been used in the battle. So that's similar to the stratagem and enhancement in the Gladius Task Force. Finally, there is a way to add characters to Repentia. With Catechism of Divine Repentance, a Canoness, Priest, or Palatine can join Repentia, and they also gain the Penitent keyword. This is good for 2 reasons. Yes, your Repentia can have a lovely +1 to wound from the Priest, or have lethal hits from the Palatine, which stacks with their new sustained hits on their weapons. Or, because this enhancement also gives the character the Penitent keyword, they can join their normal unit, and now that is a Penitent keyword unit. So a flying Penitent Canoness can join Zephyrim, and there's your Bloody Rose Combat Blender unit. The problem is, I don't know how much we'd be able to exploit this. The detachment rule specifies for each of the vows just Penitent models. This stratagem that we've seen in full, unfortunately only specifies Penitent models. If there is a stratagem that says a Penitent unit, that can work, so to some extent this can be exploited, just not to the point where a unit of Zephyrim basically becomes a Penitent unit in full, because it's just the character model. Nice idea though. We'll have to see how far you can go with it. Stratagems like Final Redemption, which gives a Penitent unit on an objective, the sticky objective rule, that's okay, but we have Battle Sisters for that now. It is useful on a fast-moving Penitent engine that can get up there, stick you an objective, and keep going. If you don't have Archoflagellants but still want this detachment, Purity of Suffering grants a 4+ Feel No Pain, so your Repentia can have an endurance level closer to that of the Archoflagellants. But say you got charged. This detachment rule with Absolution in battle means you want to be the one that charges. If that's the vow you want this battle round and not Death Before Disgrace, fall back with the unit and you can recharge, which also means you fight first with Boundless Zeal. Sadly, this is the only stratagem that lets you use it on non-Penitent models. If you have hordes of Archoflagellants, all is good for you, and the miracle dice don't stop being effective just because you're in this detachment. They are still good. But as I've said, because of my collection, this is not the detachment for me. If you could keep supporting me by watching more videos, or maybe, just maybe, you can spare some coins for my Ko-fi tip jar. That link is the blue thing on screen, and it's also in the description. Any money you can give helps me be grounded and good through what is looking like a very busy June. If you want more tidbits of rules, I'll be coming back very soon with more. But I should let you know, out of fairness, that Art of War, Sprues and Brews, and Tabletop Tactics are where I got this information from. I just put it into a shorter format than a multi-hour battle report. Genestealer Cult are going to be in the next video, and I'll come back to the Sisters, of course. You know how it is when I have them both come out at once. Remind yourself of what we know already, and prep for the coming meta that affects all armies. Those are new videos that you may not have seen. At least add them to your watch later playlist, and have a great day of 40k.